Let me tell you about the score.
Sometimes while you find a vision and love of adorning a concept that works as musicians the first time, when it comes to growing, one can find themselves retooling their sound to fit that love a bit more uniquely and in a broader sense. That sounded like the energy Praz, Wyclef Jean, and Miss Lauryn Hill were pushing forth when working on the follow-up to their debut, Blunted on Reality as the Fugees. A record that, while seen more as a decent warm-up in hindsight, wasn't the biggest splash at the time. Something I could admittedly get, considering I think it's a solid entrance into the scene and still shows that there's talent between the three. In my opinion, if they wanted to be bigger, they had to switch it up somehow. The real magic of that switch-up came from a place that, while maybe a piece of the foundation of hip-hop, by the time the mid-90s rolled around, felt reinvigorated on the other side of this album's success. It's an album that also uses that idea to enrich the band's love of a concept, and is a classic that I'll be talking about today. It is the Fugees' 1996 sophomore classic, The Score.
What I think really elevates the score above other New York hip-hop albums of the mid to late 90s that were obsessed with skits in hip-hop and making records feel like these cinematic experiences is that not only does the group make use of the intro and outro to make songs out of them, these skits that they use to loosely bridge together this concept that feels just kind of like a sort of rekindling of vibes from their last album is that they don't put them in the track listing. They just make them a part of the sequencing. And I think that the skits are also not like egregious. I don't know why I'm harping on the skits at the intro when talking about a record so impactful like The Score, but if we're looking at really the pieces of it that make it a timeless slice of time, the skits are very much a core component of that. The other part of it, where it feels like the group is sort of setting a precedent and helping build a foundation with which the back half of the 90s would build even more from, are its overt interpolations. The biggest songs from this are all popular interpolations of other songs, and the group does so with this just well-crafted creativity. Something that was showcased recently when Wyclef and Lauryn Hill rejoined together to perform Killing Me Softly with his song, a moment that I really, really loved. I thought that like the D'Angelo, Roberta Flack tributes were done both well, but I've got a soft spot in my heart for the Fugees version of this song, so I was excited to see them come back together to deliver that. But like, each interpolation does a good job at not only showcasing that Lauryn Hill may have been like mildly sidelined on their debut because of her vocal talents, but like what interpolating these samples into the album also do to enrich parts of the themes of this heist gone sideways. That tying into the concept aside, though, again, that interpolation stuff very much feels like a big component of parts of the late 90s. I mean, hell, I just talked about that Ice Cube album that does it. That Nas album I talked about a couple years ago, also very much guilty of it. Like, sure, sampling was still very much a thing in the mid-90s, and a lot of great records utilized samples well, and producers were good about skirting those samples, but it wasn't quite to the same overtness like it was in the late 80s, that like the interpolations of the mid to late 90s also felt very much in the spirit of. I do love it though, and I think that referential style also plays into the songwriting. Some of the bar spinning on Zealots and How Many Mics, the reference play just feels very potent, especially from Praz. And I think that like it all feels in service to a record that all feels like homage in a very tasteful way. On top of that, the clean production. This record just sounds very full and lively, and I really enjoy that about it. There's a spirit and ebb and flow throughout the mood of this record that I think still stands the test of time and showcases how sometimes the classics just age like fine wine, both in regards to how the band does these interpolations and the interpolations themselves being timeless songs. The samples that they choose on here, too, help enrich that classic feel. That flip on Zealots is iconic, in my opinion. I absolutely love that song. Same on The Score, the title track itself. The fact that the title track has moments in it where they interject samples from the record itself. Just all plays into that self-referential feel that parts of this record have, or that deep referential feel that this album has going on. And I think that that's interesting, especially considering how, like, they don't necessarily pull back on the politics on this record. In fact, I feel like, again, some of those references and all that tie into those more politically driven themes. I think that it creates a more subdued approach to the delivery that overall I think better represents the group's talent. It's not to say that I think Wyclef and Lauryn Hill aren't great at sounding like how they did on the debut, but like they are artists with like a more broader skill set. They have moments where they tap into that, but the moments where they don't feel any less potent in metaphor or purpose. And I really love that about it. I also think that for a group that started as this idea of, like, community of refugees, I think that, like, the more diverse mood on here makes it feel more indebted to the group's origins. And I don't know, I really enjoy where they took their ideas from the first album and did a lot more interesting things with them on the score. Plus the moments where they do focus more on it, like on Family Business or on The Mask, it lets those moments stand even bolder. And it creates for a more, I don't know, dynamic just listening experience. They tapped into some real just creative juices on here that are potent. The creative circle that worked on this project just feels like a really great batch of creatives just crafting a great series of homages. It's just a really cool sounding record that has obviously stood the test of time. Obviously, when it comes to the reception of this album, this is a record that is very much revered. This was a big success for the group, and it is kind of upsetting that they didn't really stay together longer after this. But, I mean, I guess I kind of get it if they are a clash of creatives and they just can't see themselves coming back together after branching out and doing more. It's understandable. It just really fucking sucks. It was a treat, again, to see Wyclef and Lauryn Hill at the Grammys. I thought it was really cool that they came together to do that. Which, to be honest, the Grammys like appearance wasn't what inspired this. I was going to want to talk about this now because it's turning 30. I've been doing these like X year was a long time ago bits. 1996 is now a very long time ago. And this album I still think stands the test of time. Not gonna lie, watching them perform that hit me. It got me choked up a bit just because I really love their version of Killing Me Softly with his song. And I think that this record's a classic. If you haven't spun the score, you owe it to yourself to do so. It is a record that shows that like sometimes when you just give it another go, you can make something special happen. That said, those are kind of my thoughts on the score 30 years later. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What don't you like about the score? Let me know in the comments down below. Give this a like if you enjoyed it. If you want to see more, consider subscribing. I usually drop 2 to 4 vids depending on what I've got going on. I have my new album wrap-up dropping after this before The Perfect Dark Part 2 drops this weekend. And I hope you're excited for both of those. I'm going to go, though. I've been Viral Rack. You guys will get these lots of situations, and I'll see you another day.